Yo, what's up? So, this is the new Fractine build I actually made. Um, so normally it's just a normal heavy gale build that I was planning to do at one point, and I've seen they just buffed Fractine, so I decided, yo, why not using it? And honestly, I don't even know what they were thinking with that buff. The crit does that I missed the first hit, but he does that much damage. That's 90 damage on the second part, and that's like the one of the hardest one to dodge. Like the full crit does that much damage. It's over 120 damage. It's it's fucking crazy. And the second part, it's not that much, but it's still pretty nice to have like a range crit with it. So I don't really need to explain why I went Gale. Gale Heavy has always been a good thing, and I mean, Gale itself is just meta right now. Like, Wind Card is so easy to like force people into shaky block and force them into throwing their parry away. But to be honest, what I like the most with this build is air swing. Like, with this, it's easy to like it's slow, but you can easily feint things and like air swing. But what how this build actually shine when it comes to air swing is when you're in second mode, because the weapon like change range. We go to like this kind of range, which is kinda it's sometimes kinda easy like to like do the air swing and confuse your opponent. That's why sometimes I land things so easily. Also, what you wanna do a lot on this build is when you're in this mode, you wanna do this feint into doing it again, like that. I do this most of the time, it lands, sometimes it doesn't, but to me it does land. Now, what you actually wanna do with this is actually, let me okay. So, actually it's kinda hard to master at first, but basically what you wanna do is when you have a Gale Dash available, you wanna do crit and dodge at the same time. It basically does that. It's basically a dash crit. It makes it so that if you're far away, you can easily land a crit. And maybe you've seen, maybe you're gonna see in the video, but I also landed like up close. I also like dodge behind them. Sometimes I managed even to land a spine cutter on them. It's pretty nice. But yeah, after that I went Glare. Glare is a good stun since it's been buffed. It's pretty good. What the fuck? So since it's been buffed, it's been pretty good and it's a good stun basically. And prediction is just a counter. It's good. Now, if I have one advice to say, is modify your Galvus, because mine only has 3. It only has 3 casting thing, which makes it not last long. And it's pretty good since it's built up. It builds up Spectre Bar over time. Where in combat it's pretty good. So yeah, basically that's all my build is. I hope you will enjoy the video and maybe consider subscribing if you like my content. Alright, I'll let you off with the video now.